afternoon, everyone. This is Liz Christopherson and Carol Vickers with Empower Consulting Group. We are pleased to be working with Practice Pay Solutions, who is the host of this webinar this afternoon. Practice Pay Solutions is an online payment services provider, and we encourage you to visit their website. We're excited to be speaking with Karyn Greenstreet. Karyn is the president of Passion for Business. She's an internationally known speaker, author, and self-employment expert. She's taught business and personal development topics to over 260,000 people worldwide. She is extraordinarily passionate about helping self-employed people create the life and business they want. A recipient of the 2011 Most Inspiring Businesswoman Award, she's also been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and quoted in the New York Times. Karyn is a person who encourages you to live up to your peak potential, to create a business that is juicy, rich, and fascinating. And what's really exciting for me is that Karyn has had a record number of registrations and participants on this webinar today. So Karyn, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us on success secrets for email marketing campaigns.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. So I think it's really important to jump into content right away. So I think we should just go ahead and get started. Well, Karyn, if you could just wait one more minute, we'll just to make sure there's people who are joining right now, and they just don't want to miss a minute of it. So if we can just chat for just a moment until we just go right on noon and make sure that everybody is able to start right at the beginning. I just see that people are joining us right now. So good. And one of the things you didn't say in my bio is that I've been a Practice Pay Solutions customer probably since the beginning. So I have known these folks for many a year. That's great, and that's actually something that Liz and I were talking about earlier, was about how Practice Pay is maybe a great solution for many of the people in the audience. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that. Good. So when you began your practice, Karyn, that was something that supported you in your business, is that right? Oh, hugely. I really wouldn't have a business if I couldn't accept credit cards or if I didn't have a shopping cart. It's a crux of everything that I do. Wonderful. Okay. Well, it is Pacific time, so we're right at the top of the hour, so please go right ahead. Let's get going. Great. Hi, everybody. This is Karyn Greenstreet. I'm a small business consultant and the owner of Passion for Business. And today we're going to be talking about getting more success from your email marketing campaigns. Email marketing is still the hottest internet marketing technique for generating revenue, period. Even Michael Stelzner, who is the owner of Social Media Examiner, which is a huge, popular website about social media marketing, he said in an interview recently that email marketing is the most powerful marketing technique out there. So if a social media guru says that email marketing is important, you really need to pay attention to that. But I think part of our problem is that people are drowning in marketing messages. They're drowning in emails, but they're really also drowning in marketing messages. So what you need to do is to be thinking about how you can help them, because right now they're really skilled, and their whole premise is, how can I ignore you today? They're busy, they're time constrained, and they're getting an awful lot of marketing messages coming at them from multiple places. So one of the things we want to do is talk about email marketing as a way of cutting through that without actually adding a burden to them. And I think we're going to be talking a lot about that today. So let's kind of review quickly our agenda for today. We're going to be talking about the best days to send and also the best time of day to send. Some real nitty-gritty kind of information that's based on research studies and not just, someone's
intuitive whim about what they think is right. This is based on a lot of research and a lot of scientific studies, and so I want to share that kind of information with you. I also want to talk with you about building your list and about getting people not only to open your emails, but actually to read them, and even more important, to respond to them. And a lot of that has to comes down to deliverability. And so learning how to get past spam filters, learning how to get your emails delivered so people can even open them is a huge process. I heard recently a statistic, they said that something like only 40% of your emails are getting delivered. That's not a good sign, and so we need to be able to make sure that our emails are delivered, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on in our webinar. And then the final piece is integrating your email marketing techniques with all your other marketing techniques, especially social media marketing. I know a lot of you are doing other marketing techniques, so how does email marketing fit into that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end, and then we'll be able to make sure that you have a plan for yourself where you really feel like you know what you're doing. But before we get started, let's talk about some really important statistics that you should know. So the first question people always ask me is, when should I send my emails? And I think that people send them at any time, but they don't really track the results they get. Well, I have read many, many research studies, and I also track every single email marketing campaign that I do to see things like, when is the best day to send it? When is the best time to send it? What should the subject line be? All these things, I do track all that. And so let me share with you some research studies and some of my own experience when it comes to this kind of information. So let's start with the best time to send. The best time to send, according to research studies, is that people tend to open their emails between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. Now, I know you're going to say 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., whose time zone? Well, of course, their own time zone. But if you send it out 6 a.m. Eastern, then you're guaranteed to hit all the United States. If you have a European audience and you want to send it out like 6 a.m. Berlin time or 6 a.m. London, England time, just so that you're in their inbox by 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. But also, another big time when they open and read emails is between noon and 2. So you do need to track how many opens you get if you send it out early in the morning versus if you send it out around lunchtime. Now, here's the other thing that we know, is that 90% of people who have a mobile device move between their mobile device and their home computer to read emails. So they will open up their email on the train, or some of them while they're still in bed in the morning, or when they're having their cup of coffee, they'll open it up on their smartphone or on their iPad or whatever. But then in order to go and actually really deeply read them, often they will move to another device. And so you need to know that they hop back and forth, and you need to make sure your emails are viewable both on a mobile device and also on their computer. And so that's something you want to talk to your email service provider about, and also design an email layout that can accommodate both of those. And the basic principle, of course, is try to make it just simply relatively narrow, not hugely narrow, relatively narrow, and one column. If you try to do a 2-column email, the people who are looking at on a mobile device won't see the right-hand column. It'll disappear for them because their screen isn't wide enough. Okay? So that's when to send as far as time of day. When to send as far as day of the week, most people open and respond to emails most on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, but also Saturdays. So what you want to be thinking about is, does your audience open and read emails on Saturdays? Now, my audience is small business owners. They read their email all the time. So if I send out an article on a Saturday, I get the same open rate as if I send out that same article on a Wednesday. If your audience is a business, like a corporate business, then of course they're not going to open their emails on Saturday. So you do need to test that and see. But if your audience is consumers, or if your audience is small business owners, they're probably reading your emails on Saturdays, and so that's a good day. As a matter of fact, it's a great day, because often Saturday is the only time they actually have time to read your content in your email. You send them a really great article, but if they're busy during the week, they're not going to have time to read that article. But Saturday morning, they might be willing to sit and read it while they're having their cup of coffee, because they're a little bit more relaxed. So that's just some statistics that I think is really helpful to get us started and get us off on the right foot. Let's talk about building your list, because that is the first thing you need to be paying attention to. And the trick here is that you need to be thinking that your website is great, social media is great, but if you have a small list or a poor quality email list, you're going to have a hard time selling. And here's why. It's all about building relationships and building trust. And it's about establishing yourself as the expert in your field and as someone that people want to do business with. So once you've established that relationship, you've established a level of trust and credibility, then you can make them an offer to sell your products or your services to them, and they'll buy from you. But lots of people visit your website, but most of them will not buy on the first visit. As a matter of fact, only about 3% are even willing to buy, and maybe only 1% do buy. And people may see you come and go on social media, but they may not be ready to buy. But an email list allows you the opportunity to get in front of them in a way that they're not going to miss it. Whereas if you put something on your website, they might not come back to visit your website. If you put something on social media, they might not see it at the time that you post it. So an email list really is the way that's going to help you to build that relationship in the most strong way that's possible. And the size of your list isn't really as important as the quality of your list. Do you have a good relationship with these people? Does your list contain people who are your perfect target audience? So you need to, of course, in order to build your list, you need to start with some sort of a free offer. I don't care if it's a free ebook, a free assessment, a free white paper, a free teleseminar, a free downloadable audio, a free chapter of your big book. It doesn't really matter. In fact, if you could bundle 2 or 3 things together in your free offer, that's very compelling to people. Because often people say, just what I need, another newsletter. If you just say, oh, hey, sign up for my newsletter, that's not exciting to them. You have to have something to offer them. And like I said, if you could bundle 2 or 3 things together, that would really be valuable to them. Like last year on my website, one of my free offers was an audio download and a transcript of a 1-hour teleclass that I had just done. So they could get it in audio version or in written version, because some people prefer to listen to audios and some people like to read. So by offering both, I served 2 markets at the same time, and the value of that offer was increased. So in order to increase signups, you're going to use some sort of graphic representation of what they're going to get. Even if it's a downloadable product, you need to make it feel more real and more tangible. And one of the things I do, you might consider, is there's a very inexpensive piece of software. It's called BoxShot 3D, BoxShot 3D, and that is a great piece of software for creating these little graphics that make it look like this is a physical product, and it gives some depth to downloadable freebies. And of course, you want to make sure that your free offer is very specifically targeted to your target audience. So as an example, my target audience is small business owners. I'm not going to put an offer out there about, how to prune a tree. That's not interesting to them. Maybe some of them, but not everybody. You want to make sure it's very, very specific, because if someone accidentally ends up on your website and they're not your target audience, you don't want them on your mailing list. All right, so don't make your free offer too broad, because if it's, how to save money with coupons, too many people are interested in that. You need to narrow it down. Of course, unless your whole website's about how to save money with coupons, that's another story. But I think that it's really important that you really target your free offer. The other way to increase signups is, I want you to think about this carefully. I want you to just collect their name and email address. You don't need any other information about that person until they're a hot prospect. Studies have shown that the more fields you ask them to fill out, the less likely it is that they'll sign up for your free offer. So if you ask them for their country and their telephone number and the number of children they have, they're not going to fill that out. And as a matter of fact, on my blog, I just ask them for their email address. I don't even ask them for their name up front. If they're going to buy something, they'll give me their name. Otherwise, I just need their email address. Now, what you want to do is you want to be thinking about that different techniques work for different audiences as far as getting more signups for your mailing list. So let's look at some of the techniques that I like to use that I have found to be really powerful. Of course, having a free offer on your website, that's not a big surprise. Most people know about that. But these days, people are really overwhelmed with emails and email newsletters. So you have to be offering them something more, something really, really valuable. That's why I love bundling some things together. And if you can, try to make whatever this free thing you're offering, make it easy to deliver. Don't have it be something that takes a huge amount of your time, because you really want to automate it. You don't want to have something that takes too much of your time away, because as you get people to sign up, it might be easy in the beginning to maintain a manual offer. Over time, it's not going to. And I think that's why you need to have a mailing list system that's automated, and an autoresponder system that's automated, so that they sign up and a computer sends them an email to say, okay, and here's where you can pick up your downloadable audio, or here's where you can dial in to attend the webinar, and all of that is automated. So it doesn't really matter which service you use. It just really has to make sure that you have an email list manager and an autoresponder feature. I personally use Practice Pay Solutions, and the reason I do is because it has list building and list management and autoresponders and auto delivery all built into it, including a shopping cart. And for me, that was really important to have that. The other thing you want to be thinking about is, where else can you make this free offer? And so here are some places where you can make that free offer. You can make it on social media sites. I mean, have you been offering your social media people your free offer that they can sign up when you can move those people from social media to your mailing list? Are you in speeches making free offers, or when you're teaching classes, do you do free offers? When you send thank you emails to people who've purchased something from you, do you put the free offer in there as well, so that you can let people sign up for it there? You could even do something like a classified ad. You could use Craigslist or something like that in order to build your mailing list, as long as your free offer is very targeted to your audience and not to the general public. Okay? And don't forget something like Google AdWords or advertising on social media sites like Facebook or LinkedIn. I know you have to spend some money for that, but I think it's really valuable, because you can get in front of people who are specifically your target audience. Okay? Another thing you want to do is, inside the free offer itself, let's just say your free offer is an ebook. Inside the ebook, tell people about how to sign up for your list and how to get your other free offers. And here's why. Because if I download your free ebook and I like it, I'm going to forward it to a friend. Well, once my friend gets it, she doesn't know how to sign up for your list. So in the ebook itself, tell people, if you're getting this from one of your colleagues or friends, here's how you can get on my list and get more free offers. And also, by the way, do that for your newsletter. If I write a newsletter, it's great, and people forward my newsletter to someone else. In that newsletter, I wanted to say, here's how you can sign up for my newsletter if you're getting this from a friend or a colleague. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. I do have a free audio for you today, 12 different ways to build your mailing list, and it's part of an email marketing toolkit. You can pick it up at passionforbusiness.com/toolkit, and that will help you to be able to build your list. It's got a whole bunch of different ways of adding more and more people to your subscriber list. Now, I think the trick here is that you want to make sure where you place the offer matters. You want it at the top of each page, and you can see on the example that I'm showing you here, it's in my case, in the upper right-hand corner, and it's on every page. Now, here's the trick. You don't want to put it on absolutely every page, because if you have a page that's selling something and you want them to take a sales action, you don't want to distract them with your free offer. So as an example, if I have a page where I'm marketing a paid class, I don't want to make this free offer on that same page. So you've got to be able to modify your pages so the free offer shows up where you want it. And most website software will allow you to do this. You just have to figure out how to make that happen. So, and if you, by the way, if you don't manage your own website, then ask your website designer to do that for you and say, okay, on these 10 pages, I want the free offer. On these other 5 pages, I don't want that free offer. All right? And the other thing is, you want to figure out what you want that box, the sign-up box, to look like. And so I'd love for you to be able to have some sort of a graphic, and we talked about BoxShot 3D as a way to create those graphics. or create, use Photoshop or Photoshop elements to create a little graphic of what this cover would look like, and put that on there. They have found, studies have shown that having a graphic representation of the free download or the free offer gets so many more signups than just the free offer text-wise by itself. All right. You also want to make sure that you tell them what they're going to get, and you tell them what they need to do. And I know it sounds really silly. It's like, you could see there's a sign-up box here. Go ahead and do that. But you notice right above it, I put sign up below for my free ebook. I basically tell them this is what you need to do next. I give them a call to action, and you need to do that even on a sign-up box like this. And then simply do name and email address, and then you can choose the text for the button. I really don't like the word subscribe, because subscribe, people are like, oh, gee, I don't want to subscribe to anything. What's another phrase that you can put in that box that says, get it now, or join us, or something? Because you can modify what that text looks like. There's no reason for you to use the default, subscribe, or sometimes it says go, or enter. Why not modify that text to be something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting? So let's just say that you've built your list, or let's just say that you have a list. Now you have to think about getting people to open it and read it and respond to your emails. And I think the first thing we want to talk about is getting people to open it. Now, we know that we know what time of day people are opening emails, because I told you that earlier. But the thing is what gets them to open it? And sometimes it's something as simple as making sure that your emails come from you, that the from line is a person. So when I send out my newsletter, it says it's from Karyn Greenstreet. It doesn't say it's from Passion for Business. It doesn't say it's from, your newsletter subscription. It has my name because it is from me. And people get used to that because in an email, you're an individual person, and you're talking to an individual person. So why would your from line be anything other than that? So that's a great way to get them to open it, because what happens is they get used to seeing things from you. They know the quality of things from you. They don't have to read the subject line. They're like, oh, look, it's from Karyn Greenstreet. They just naturally open it. And I'll be honest, there are gurus and teachers that I love that the minute I see it's from them, I open it. I don't even read the subject line. I open it because I know it's going to be good stuff. All right? Now, here's the trick. You're going to find that about 50% of your subscribers are using like a Gmail or a Hotmail or a Yahoo email address. Okay? So getting those people to get your emails is really important. And in order to guarantee deliverability to a Gmail address, a Hotmail address, a Yahoo address, these systems watch to see what your subscribers do with the emails that they get. So you really want to make sure that they're opening it. Not only that, you want to make sure they're clicking through on things in that email and they're not just deleting it, because Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, they're watching to see what people do with those emails. So getting them to open it really, really matters. And your subject line is going to be one of the most important things that's going to get them to open it. So about half of your email list is going to be active, either opening or clicking through on links sometime in the last month. And that's studies they've done. I mean, I've looked at my own email list. It's about 70% active. That means once a month, 70% of my subscribers will open an email. Well, I send 4 emails a month. That's, you're thinking, wow, they only open at least once. People are inundated. You have to remember they're busy. I have actually watched people in the morning with their iPhones and a cup of coffee, literally going through their emails and going delete, 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 delete. That's what they do first thing in the morning. So the idea of maybe sending your emails at lunchtime might be smarter, because they're not in that delete mode, and maybe they'll read your emails. But because your subject line is so important, let's talk a little bit about what makes a good subject line and some of the tricks. By the way, they've done studies. 64% of people say that they open emails because of the subject line. That's more than half the people. They just look at that subject line, and that's enough to get them to open it. 64%, that's huge, and so that's really important. So there's 2 rules about getting them to open it: being consistent and having a good subject line. So let's talk about subject lines first, and then we'll talk about consistency later. Your subject line in your email absolutely matters. If they don't open your email, then they won't read your email. So here are some tips that I can give you about getting them to open your emails. The shorter the subject line, the better. They've done some studies, and subject lines of like 30 or less characters gets way above average performance when it comes to opens and click-throughs. So I would encourage you to, if you can, keep it short and sweet. You know, these really sort of snappy subject lines really do help. I would say maybe 5 words at tops. If you can narrow it down to that, would be really, really super. You just want to convey the message about what's in the email and what's in it for them, why is it good, and get them to open it. So 3 secrets, and the first one is use numbers. People love to see numbers. So you can say 8 tips for video, whatever, 44 tips for this. People like numbers. They like you to use emotion. So if you can promise them happiness, if you can promise them relief from stress, if you can tell them they're going to be excited or you have exciting news to share, any emotional words are going to get them to open it. And I don't want you to be manipulative, but if it's a true emotion, go ahead and use it. And then the third thing is if they feel like you're going to tell them a secret. 8 tips to perfect marketing videos. Like, ooh, what's that? You know, they're curious. They're going to open it. So that kind of subject line I think is really important. And you may have seen this before, but I think it's really important that you pay attention to the front covers of magazines. Because think about it, a magazine has the exact same problem you have. They got to get people to be interested enough to open that magazine. Hopefully to buy it and then open it, but you know, if it's at the doctor's office when you're flipping through magazines, you glance at these subject lines. You know, they're called headlines on the, you know, on the front of a magazine, but they're subject lines. So look at this and look how they use each of those 3 things I talked about. They're using numbers, walk off 10, 20, or 30 pounds, 30 days to a healthier heart. They understand that. Using emotion, you know, choose happiness, surprising ways to cure pain naturally. They're using emotional words in this, or things that will trigger your emotion. And it's not like they're being manipulative, because these are the things you want, otherwise you wouldn't pick up the magazine. And the third thing is they're promising to tell you a secret. So 30 days to a healthier heart, you're like, ooh, how do I cut my heart disease risk by more than 80%? It must be something I've not heard of, so now I have to open this up and look up that article. These are the kind of things that really get people's attention. Now, so I've given you 3 subject line formulas for non-copywriters as part of the toolkit, and that will speed you on your way for writing really, really good subject lines. Let's move on. So, okay, we've got them to open it. How do we go about getting them to read it? And that's where this consistency comes in. You need to show up in their inbox on a regular basis. And not just on a regular basis, but with excellent content, of course. You really want them to anticipate getting things from you, that they kind of can't wait to open up your emails. And there's some people that, you know, when I get their emails, I can't wait to open it. I know it's going to be extraordinary. I know it's going to be really good content. So showing up regularly in their inbox, and always showing up with great content, that's 2 ways of being consistent. And here's one of the things that studies have shown is that people who are newer to your mailing list are far more likely to open and respond to your emails than people who've been on your list for a long time. So you might want to have some sort of a nurturing campaign for people who've been on your list, say, less than 90 days or less than 120 days, so that you're really having a conversation with them, because they're so much more likely to be paying attention to you, frankly. So let's talk a little bit about getting people to read those emails. And here's the trick with that. I think that the amount of time it takes people to read your content has grown. It used to be people would open it up the same day, or maybe even the next day. And now we're seeing people reading newsletters like 3 days later, 5 days later. So you need to pay attention to your open dates from your subscribers. and time your content accordingly. So as an example, let's just say that you're going to be holding some sort of an event. Let's say you're going to be doing a paid class. And say that your paid class is on the 27th, but you can't send out an email on the 26th because they may not open and read it that day. You've got to be thinking about how people really handle email now different than they used to. So maybe you're going to have to start your campaign calendar maybe 5 days or 10 days before, just to kind of guarantee that the person's going to open and read it, just because of their new habit of the way that they read email. So let's talk about that content. One of the best ways you're going to get them to read that email is to offer consistent, really excellent content. We've already talked about that. And also how often you send. So my advice to you is send at least monthly. Weekly is better if you can, but monthly is the minimum. And here's why. If I get on your newsletter list and you send me something tomorrow, and then 3 months from now is the next time I hear from you, I am not going to remember who you are. I'm just not. So I need to hear from you at least once a month, if not once a week. And I realize it's a huge amount of content that you have to create, but on the other hand, you're trying to build your business, and you have to put some investment in somewhere. So think about that. Now, you are trying to build an ongoing relationship. Studies have shown that only 3% of people are in the buying mood, when you send them something. That means you've got to nurture that other 97% of people. So this is not a one-time connection you're having with them. It's an ongoing connection, which is why I love autoresponders, because you can have an ongoing, automated series of emails that go out to them once a week or once every other week, instead of you having to manually do that. So think about that. If you're trying to save yourself some time, you might want to consider not having to send out your newsletters manually. Another great way to get them to read your emails, besides obviously having great content, is write in the first person. I want you to think that you have one reader. There's one person at a time who's reading your newsletter, and you're talking to them as if it were a personal email. So in your mind, I want you to be thinking, Dear Mary, and then you write your content, or Dear George. And so write as if you're talking to another person. Don't write in the third person. And also what I call your tone of voice. The way you write really matters. You really need to know your audience and how they want to relate to you. So most people are people. They prefer to be spoken to in a casual yet professional way from the people that they're going to purchase things from. And you need to make sure that your tone of voice in your writing matches the brand or the image you're trying to project. So if your brand is quirky, then your writing should be quirky. If your brand is enthusiastic, then your writing should be enthusiastic. If your brand is traditional, then your writing should be traditional. So know your audience and know your brand and write in that format. Now, there's some types of content that are going to get you to read more. And here's some of those things. Obviously, put yourself in their shoes. What are they interested in reading about? And not only that, but what level are they at? Are they a beginner or are they more advanced? You don't want to give them content they already know about. So if your audience is beginners, then you can really start from scratch and write articles on very basic stuff. If your audience is a little bit more advanced, don't give them introductory stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, I already know about that, delete, and you lost them, okay? So any kind of unique, insightful, educational articles are always helpful. Maybe even do an email-based series of lessons. So it's 10 emails they get, and each one is a lesson about a certain topic. That's always valuable to people. Maybe tell them stories about, and I don't mean success stories where you're bragging about how you helped your clients, but stories about people who are going to be like them, that they really can relate to. In fact, tell them stories about big projects that you're working on. Get them excited and make them feel like they're part of it. All right? Stories about things that are happening in the news that are targeted to your audience. And of course, they get your point across. Don't just say, oh, well, there was a big snowstorm in New England this week. Say how that relates to your audience. Of course, other things that are always valuable to people is maybe event offers or coupons or special deals. People love that. Resources, links to other websites, links to good articles, good movies, good books, good education programs. All of that kind of stuff is valuable. Now, if you have an email newsletter and you also have a blog, don't forget in your email newsletter to create a section called, I call in mine, More from the Blog. You can call it what you want, but it's just a series of links to blog posts that are either popular on your blog or are relatively new because it drives more traffic to your website. Remember, one of the ways to ensure deliverability to the 50% of your list, which are Gmail, Hotmail, and Yahoo email addresses, is that they open and they click on a link. So if you have a More from the Blog, More from my blog section with just a list of maybe 3 of the hottest blog posts that you've done, then they'll click on that link. Gmail says, oh, they're a clicker. This is a legitimate newsletter, and they're going to consistently deliver that newsletter to that subscriber. Gmail is. Okay, you really want to make sure that you do that. You also want to make sure that you make these your emails as interactive as possible, and so you do want to put social media buttons on there, and you want them to comment on these things. Here's what I have found in my own studies. Because people often ask me, well, how much of the content should I put in the email? Should I put the whole article or just a little snippet and a link where they can go read the full article on my website? And I've done studies, and here's what I know. I read an article, it was like 10 months ago, called 44 Ways to Deal with Overwhelm. And because it was 44 ways, it was too big to put in email. And so I put in just a little bit of the beginning part of the article in the newsletter and a link, click here to read the rest of the 44 ways. Let me tell you how that did. Not only is that a very big topic with my audience because we're all overwhelmed and busy and distracted, it was visited from my mailing list something like 3,000 times. And since I put it out there, it's been shared using social media buttons over 8,000 times. One article on my blog. But when I look at my statistics to say, did they share it from my email? They rarely shared it from my email. So not only by putting in a snippet, the first 2 or 3 paragraphs of your article and then a link to your website to read the full article, not only does that get you a click, it gets you a visit to your website, and you're going to find that people are more willing to share it. So you need to look at your statistics, and you need to see, are they sharing it from my email? And usually any kind of social media sharing buttons that you put in your email, there's statistics behind that which will tell you, are people using that? Or are they sharing it on my blog or on my website? And there's statistics for those sharing buttons as well. And I want you to be comparing that to see where they're actually taking action, because everyone's list is unique. And some people say to me, oh, why don't you have sharing buttons in your newsletter? And I don't do it because people don't use them in my newsletter. They use them on my blog. So I put a snippet in and a link to my blog, and that's where they do all their social sharing. Okay? Now, one of the things you also really want to make sure is that you make sure the design of your newsletter is easy to read as well. So you want to make sure you have a consistent, if you're going to use an HTML email, you have a consistent header graphic that really shows your brand, maybe it's your logo or whatever, that you're just using maybe 2 font colors plus black. You're not using a lot of font colors. You're using headlines and subheadlines to organize your article so it's easy to read. You're not using a busy background. You're using a big enough font that people can read it. And remember, we talked about earlier, mobile devices are becoming more popular. The latest statistic I heard is that by the end of this year, 70% of people will be reading their email on some sort of mobile device, and that includes tablets and smartphones and things like that, 70%. So if your design of your layout of your newsletter is too wide, those people aren't going to be able to read your newsletter. So all of these things matter to get your newsletter read. So we talked about getting people to open it. We talked about people getting it to read it. We talked about people responding to it. Now let's talk a little bit about deliverability. Here's the trick. You've got to get your newsletters delivered to their inbox, or none of this stuff can happen. And this is sort of like the ugly stepchild. No one wants to talk about this, but if you can't get them delivered, then you're going to be in trouble, because of course no one's opening it and reading it. No one's getting it. And if it's true that only 40% of your emails are getting through to people, then you need to increase your deliverability rate. So let's talk about some of the ways you do that. First of all, spam filters can be triggered by certain words in your newsletter. So you need to know what those trigger words are. And I've put a document in the email marketing toolkit that I have for you that is a list of all the trigger words that spam filters will love. They're going to eat it up, and they're going to kick out your email. So I've given you that in the toolkit. The other thing is, if in your newsletter the website links that you put in your newsletter are linking to a website that's been blacklisted, then that will kick out your email and it will not be delivered as well. It's just a different kind of filter. So on the page where you download the email marketing toolkit, I've put a link to a place where you can see whether your website has been blacklisted. That's huge. Also, your email service provider, the people who send your email, their IP address, their email server can be blacklisted as well. So I've put a link to a place where you can find out, are they blacklisted? Here's the good news. Most websites or most email service providers are only blacklisted for a few hours, sometimes for 24 hours. But it would be good to know if they were blacklisted before you sent your emails out, otherwise your deliverability will be really, really low. We also talked about this, what they're calling social action. What are people doing with the emails? That's really critical. And if everyone's deleting your emails, well, then it won't get delivered next time. Gmail and Yahoo and Hotmail will say, oh, all of my people delete this email from this person. It's obviously not good, and therefore I'm not going to deliver it. So you want to make sure they're taking social action. So you ask them to, click here and read the rest of my article, or reply back to me and tell me what you think about this, or go to my blog and comment on my article. Get them to take some sort of social action with your email. In addition, you really do want to use double opt-ins. And basically the idea of a double opt-in is you're requiring people to confirm that the email address they gave you is good. Here's why that's important. First of all, you want to keep a clean list. They don't talk about it much, but there's an idea called list hygiene, which is, are the email addresses that you have good email addresses, or are they bouncing, or are they marking your emails as spam? One of the ways that you can guarantee that you've got a clean list is double opt-in. And here's how it works. I sign up for your newsletter, and automatically I get an email from you, actually it's from your email service provider, that says, hey, Karyn, guess what? You signed up for the newsletter. We just want to double check that this is a good email address. Please click here to confirm this is a good email address. Sometimes, quite frankly, people misspell their email addresses, and so they never get that confirmation email. You don't want misspelled email addresses on your mailing list, because those will always bounce. Email service providers who are receiving your emails will say, this is a bad email address, and if Karyn's constantly sending me emails that are to bad email addresses, she is not a conscientious email sender, and I'm not going to deliver her emails. The other thing I really like about it is, frankly, if people aren't willing to give me a legitimate email address, I'm not legitimately willing to give them anything. So double opt-in protects me as a business owner, because now I know that the people on my list have given me real email addresses. If you don't think that happens, statistically, 35% of people will give you a bad email address if they can. They'll give you a fake email address, not even an email that they even own. They'll just fake one. They'll just type in anything to try to get to your free content without having to give up anything. That seems to defeat the whole purpose of having free content that they have to sign up for. A double opt-in screens out those people. So you actually do want to use a double opt-in. Now, the thing that I really like about this is that then I know the people really want my material, and I know I have someone who's honestly said, this is what I want. Okay, so again, here's the link for the toolkit, passionforbusiness.com/toolkit. I'm going to put in there on the download page, Spam House is the email marketing kind of spam detector, and they have a great page about spam and spam how Spamhaus functions. I'm going to put a link to them on the download page so you have that as well, because I think it's important for you to take some time and read about what Spamhaus does, because they're the service that all the email service providers are using to detect what's spam and what's not spam. All right, so you got them to open it, you got it to read it, you got them to sign up for your list. You need to nurture your list. If only 3% of people are willing to buy, and studies have shown only like 1% of people actually do buy, that's considered good in the email marketing world. That means you have to nurture that other 99% of the people, because maybe they're going to be willing to buy tomorrow or the next day or over time as you build up trust. And so if the people who sign up for your mailing list are not what we call sales ready, then they're somewhere in the buying cycle. They're just not ready to make a purchase. And so you need to nurture them along that path to a sale, because when they are ready to buy, they'll buy from you because they trust you and that you've been sharing valuable content with them all along. So let's talk a little bit about nurturing that long-term relationship no matter where they are in the buying cycle. And one of the things you can do is share specific kinds of content with them that they're going to find very valuable in the buying cycle. So as an example, help them to figure out how to choose the best X, whatever your product and service is. How do you choose the best one? So let's just say I'm a website designer. My first article that I'm going to send them is how to choose a good website designer, or how to choose the best website designer. And it is an educational article. It's not a promotional article, so don't push it. But talk about the pros and cons and some of the things they should be looking for in a website designer. Okay? Help them to justify the cost. So maybe you send an article about here are some of the problems that I see my clients coming up with, and here's how they think about solving those problems using my service or my product compared to the cost. And don't forget, cost is not just a money thing, it's also a time thing. People look at something and say, well, what's this going to, what do I have to invest as far as my time and my attention? If you keep remembering that your mailing list is distracted and time constrained, then if you can help them to justify why your solution is going to help them without taking up too much of their time, they're really going to like that. You might even write an article on helping them, how to help them think about the problem that they have. And a lot of people say, oh, no, I don't help people with their problems. I only help them with their dreams. Here's my response to that. If they could handle and create their dream on their own, they don't need you. The people who are going to buy from you are the people who have a dream, but they can't create it on their own. They need help. Therefore, they have a challenge. They have a problem, and you can help them solve that. Writing an article on helping them analyze their problem, listing maybe the top 10 kinds of problems that the people that you serve have, would be very valuable to them. And help them think about different solutions that they can have, not just your solution, because not everyone's going to buy from you. So let's go back to the example, you're a website designer. Well, talk with them about, do-it-yourself websites compared to hiring a website designer, compared to using WordPress, compared to whatever, and talk about some of the different possible solutions and the pros and cons. All right. You could even maybe talk to them a little bit about maybe some recent industry trends, or share with them some resources that would be helpful to them. Whatever you do, talk with them about what it is you do, but in a way where you're not pounding them, saying, you got to buy from me, you got to buy from me. That just makes you look desperate. All right. You don't want to do that. So once you spend time nurturing your list, then you're going to need to spend time integrating email marketing with the other things that you do. Because email marketing is just one of the marketing techniques that you use. And so I want you to be thinking about integrating with, maybe you give speeches. Well, how can you build your list when you're at a speech? Maybe you teach classes. How do you build a list when you're teaching classes? Maybe you're using social media marketing. How do you build your list, and how do you integrate email marketing into your social media marketing? I'll just give you an example. Marketing Sherpa did a study of social media users, people who use Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest. Those people said that 75% of those people said that email was the best way for businesses to stay in communication with them. So they're telling you I need you to communicate with me via email, because even though I love social media, that's not the best way for you to communicate with me about your products and your services. All right? And a social media follower is not as valuable as an email subscriber. I know you're all going, oh, but listen, let me tell you why. Because only email subscribers have given you permission to share your content with them directly, and it shows up in their inbox, which means they're unlikely to miss seeing it. They've committed to the process of receiving information from you when they've given you their email address. In social media, it's hit or miss. You know, within 2 or 3 hours of you posting something on social media, that's off their radar. They don't see it anymore, and they're not going to go back looking for it. Whereas an email, often people will keep email, they'll flag it, and they'll go back and look at it. I have people opening emails 2 and 3 months later saying, oh, this is a great article, I want to read it again. Okay? So I want you to be thinking about integrating it. And it's not an either-or situation, it's an and situation. I want you to do email marketing and social media marketing. I want you to do email marketing and SEO. I want you to do email marketing and speeches. That you're going to build these relationships with people in multiple different ways, because there's not going to be a silver bullet of a way that's going to be the only marketing technique that you use that gets them to buy from you. I know everybody wants to hear that there's one marketing technique that's going to solve all your problems. I've never seen it happen. I've owned 5 businesses. I've been self-employed since 1981, and I'm telling you, there's not one marketing technique that's going to solve all your problems. You've got to do everything. So people often ask me, should I post, what should I post on Facebook? What should I post on Twitter? What should I post in my email newsletter? And I'm going to tell you that my feeling and my experience and what I do is I post it everywhere. I will take the same article I write in my blog and I will post it in my email newsletter. I will then also post it on Facebook. I'll post it on Twitter, because people really do have a preference where they want to read and respond to your articles and your announcements. Some prefer email, some prefer Facebook, some prefer LinkedIn. There's a few people who have an overlap, but mostly people have a very strong choice of one platform, and they'll look at the other platforms infrequently, but they won't really spend a lot of time with that. So I think it's important that you get your content out in as many ways as possible. So I think that one of the best things that I can recommend to you is to take some time to track and test your email marketing. And here's what I want you to track and test, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I want you to see how many emails you sent. When last time you sent an email broadcast, how many emails went out? How many people did not get emails? How many of them bounced? How many people did get email and opened it? And then how many people did something with that email? Either they clicked on a link or they replied to you. You need to track and test these results, because how do you know if your email marketing is working unless you look at some of the numbers? And I think the biggest thing I've had is people do email marketing and they just throw stuff out there and they don't track to see whether it works or whether it's what pieces of it's working. I'll give you an example. If they're not opening it, it's because the subject line is not good. If they're not clicking through, then your call to action, your text inside the email is not good. But you need to know your numbers to know which place it's failing. Otherwise, you're just guessing, and that's really not going to work for you. So I've given you a whole bunch of different ideas about email marketing today and putting together your campaign and building your list. I want to remind you that you can pick up the free email marketing toolkit, which has the trigger words list, the subject line formulas, and the building your mailing list, and some other links to other articles and resources for you. And I'm really hoping that you just pay a little special attention to your email marketing, because it's the strongest way that I know to get revenue, not just to connect with people, but to actually make sales. Liz and Carol, I think this is a super time to open it up and see if anyone has any questions.
Absolutely. I actually have some that have been coming in as you've been presenting, so I'll just
good, because I can't watch the chat and at the same time.
Good one. Okay. So the first one is from Jim. He is curious to hear how you describe the difference between your blog and your newsletter.
Well, actually, the difference is what I do is my blog is sort of my central place to write the full article. So full content is on the blog. The newsletter is often what I do is I send out the newsletter. It says, here's the article. I write the first 3 or 4 paragraphs, and I send them back to the blog to read the full article. So the blog is the central place to read the article, and the newsletter is a funnel that sends traffic to that blog. So Jim, that's the way I see the difference between my newsletter and my blog. They're not mutually exclusive, and I don't write exclusive content for my blog that I never share on my newsletter. All of it's shared in both places. It's not an either or, it's an and. Does that help?
Yes, I'm sure. Perfect. He says got it.
Got it. Great, Jim. Go for it.
And Lynn asks, what social sharing plugins do you use in your blog?
In my blog, I use a social sharing plugin called Share This, and I've gone through a lot of iterations. I use Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and Pinterest, and then the Share This share button, which basically includes everything else, including email. And I'm actually thinking of taking Google+ off because not many people share, not many of my audience shares via Google+. I'm going to recommend to you that you actually put maybe 3 or 4 on and you watch to see what people use most often. And if you feel like you have too many buttons on there, take some of them off based on popularity. People on my website, like that 44 tips for dealing with overwhelm, the majority of people shared via Facebook. So if that's what my audience likes, that's what I'm going to give them. I'm not fighting them on it. I'm going to give them what they want. Does that help, Lynn?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. She says thanks, and she had one more question.
Sure.
Should you time your social media posts of the same article on different days or times in case people are following you on multiple platforms?
I do find that some people follow me on multiple platforms, but it's quite rare. And again, this is my audience, so you have to know. But I find that my audience tends to prefer Facebook. So what I might do is send out my newsletter, and the next day I'll post that same content on Facebook. But I also post the exact same content on LinkedIn, Google+, and Twitter on the same day. And the reason I do that is because even if you're on Facebook and Twitter, the chances are you having both of those open at the same time and that you prefer one over the other and that you're going to be all upset if you see the same article come up twice is so rare. Most people don't get upset. I mean, they're like, okay, I saw this article already. They're not going to like hate you for it. I think the trick here is that people really do prefer one platform over the other, and if you don't post it in multiple places, you're not honoring how people want to receive your content.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Lynn says that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome, Lynn. And real quick, also, Lynn, in my newsletters, I don't use the Share This plugin because, quite frankly, I find it to be very time-consuming to create that button. I use addthis.com for my newsletters because it's just more simple to create that add this code than the Share This code. So you Share This on my blog, but add this in my newsletter. And add this has statistics so I can see how many people have shared via my email newsletter versus via my blog. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. She says she'll try it, and I'm sure there's several of us that will as well. Well, thank you very much. I'll just pass this to Liz.
Good.
Thank you so much, Karyn. You shared so many wonderful things with our audience today. And again, I want to remind everybody who is listening live, as well as those who will listen after, visit Karyn's toolkit, passionforbusiness.com/toolkit. You will find some wonderful, wonderful ways to improve your email marketing results, and we encourage you to also visit her website at passionforbusiness.com to learn more about what Karyn has to offer us. So on behalf of Practice Pay Solutions, Karyn Greenstreet, Liz Christopherson, myself, and Carol Vickers, I'd like to thank all of you for participating today. Just a reminder, we will be sending out a copy of the recording to those who are on the call as well as those who will listen later. If you think this has been of value, please take a moment to go on Facebook, go tweet it out, let people know what a wonderful experience you had today and how you will use this learning to your benefit. So thank you, Practice Pay, for bringing Karyn to us, and thank you, Karyn, for sharing your brilliance. Go out and make it a great day, and we look forward to our next session with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.